I'm Amy Smith, the founding director of MIT D-Lab, and I'm going to talk to you about the problem framing stage. I'll be joined by my friend and colleague, Mustafa Nassim, who will go into more detail about gathering and synthesizing information. For this course, we'll be focusing on stages 2, 3, and 4, framing the problem, creating a solution, and refining the product. And today, we'll begin with problem framing. For many design projects, this is the beginning of the journey. Before we get started, I want to remind you of the different phases within each stage of the design process. Good design is an iterative process, and it's a constant cycle of learning, idea generation, and experimentation. As we go over each of the stages of the design process, we're also going to give you some tools to help you with each of these different phases. In this session, we'll talk about problem framing, but we'll spend some extra time talking about tools and techniques for gathering and synthesizing information that can be used during the entire design process. I'm going to start by talking more about problem framing and why it's important. Albert Einstein once said that if he had an hour to solve a problem and his life depended on the outcome, that he'd spend the first 55 minutes defining and understanding the problem, because then he'd be able to solve it in just 5 minutes. This is also true in design. The better you can define and understand a problem, the more time you spend figuring out what part of the problem it is that you're going to address, the easier the later stages of the design process become. When we use the design process for doing problem framing, it allows you to look at a problem in many different ways and from different perspectives. This can often lead to innovative solutions, because innovation is not always about how you solve a problem. Sometimes it's about how you look at a problem. I like to think about design as having a solution space that's a cloud of different possibilities for solving the problem. And when we start the process, having identified an opportunity, the solution space is huge. We use problem framings in order to narrow it down so that we can more easily create specific solutions. Within the overall solution space, there are many different ways that you can think about the problem. These are the problem framings. Interesting solutions come from creative ways of looking at the problem and exploring the solution space of the opportunity. Within each problem framing, there are many different approaches and solutions, and the design process helps you to choose the best solution to move forward with. It's key to note that there are many possibilities, and that's one of the important but sometimes challenging parts of the design process, that there are no single right answer. As you move forward with the solution that you've selected, you continue to refine it and improve it. And as you do this, the solution space that you occupy gets narrower and narrower. So one way you can think about the design process is that it's a tool to create a specific solution in a large sea of options. You may recall from the first session that we talked about the problem of deforestation in Haiti. One of the most obvious problem framings to address deforestation would be with reforestation, planting more trees to replace those that were cut down. But by learning more about the situation, we gained insight into the causes of deforestation, and that allowed us to think about the problem in different ways. Since one of the biggest causes of deforestation was the felling of trees to make charcoal for cooking, that opened a whole new area in the solution space. And we started to explore different framings that focused on cooking, things like better cook stoves, alternative fuels, and new cooking techniques. It turns out that making an improved cooking fuel has a variety of other benefits as well. It produces less smoke than wood charcoal, so it has health benefits. It's easier to light, so it's easier to use. And finally, it allows farmers to take their waste materials and turn them into a profit stream, which provides economic benefits as well. So being creative in our problem framing allowed us to generate a variety of benefits to our solution. Another way you might think about problem framings is that they define the scope or the scale of a project. If you were to consider an opportunity that was around affordable, eco-friendly housing, you might think in terms of the overall layout of the house. Or you might think about improving the structural strength of the walls, or better ways to manufacture the individual bricks. Problem framings can be centered around needs or problems that people articulate directly. In this case, we were working with a community in the Kalahari Desert that earned income by making beads out of ostrich eggshells. It's a time-consuming process, so they were very interested in problem framings that reduced their labor. However, an opportunity presented itself in this context to produce beads out of other materials using available resources such as recycled materials and energy from the sun. This led to a project that was a solar furnace that used solar energy to take waste glass and turn it into beads. Although this was not a problem that was articulated directly by the community, when they learned about the opportunity, they became eager participants in the project. Another way to explore problem framings is by looking at different points of view. If the opportunity we were exploring was to improve the milk supply chain in India, we could think about problem framings from the point of view of people who milk cattle and buffalo, or from the people who deliver milk. You could think about it from the point of view of a cooperative, or even the point of view of the buffaloes and cows. To do this type of exploration, however, you really need to understand the context of the problem and the multiple viewpoints of the key stakeholders who are involved in the project. So now Mustafa is going to talk about principles and strategies for gathering and synthesizing information and gaining insights from it.